Part 131. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1305. That's not a bad tone, a purple dragon said lazily. Let's take action and let this kid know how to respect a powerful senior. He Long smiled evilly as he geared up. These guys don't seem to be normal. Garen said everything he needed to say, so he stopped talking nonsense and straightened up. A layer of pale white gold began to slowly cover the scales on his body. This kid is going to use his big moves to trap him, Zilong shouted immediately. A group of giant dragons swooped forward, with Galen as the center, and all 8 giant dragons around them clung to the transparent barrier around Galen, releasing lights of different colors from their bodies. Their movements froze for an instant, and then suddenly erupted with an extremely powerful force. Dragon Power Array. This is the Dragon Power Array that I invented with great concentration. You can't run away, ha ha ha. Isolaya put her hands on her hips and laughed wildly. You damn little brat, just wait and lick my ass. Ha. 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 This guy got a little carried away. At this moment, a large amount of colorful light clicked, and a terrifying white gold light burst out of the seal of the giant dragon. Garen's size instantly expanded, growing to several times its original size, reaching twice the size of an adult dragon. Size. His tall dragon body flicked its tail lightly. Bang. The dragon power formation formed by the 8 giant dragons shattered suddenly, and the 8 giant dragons flew out one after another, causing a lot of wind noise. What? Isolaya's face froze, and she was hit by the red dragon flying backwards. Boom. She was knocked hard against the cave wall, and then she and the red dragon rolled down together. One person and the other dragon lay on their backs and groaned, unable to get up again. Bang, bang. Garen walked up to her in 2 steps, stretched out his huge paws and picked her up. A tail whipped away another giant dragon that was trying to get up. Little guy, there is a price to pay for being willful. He grabbed Isolaya's collar and shook her around like she was playing with a pendant. Let me go, Isolaya shouted weakly. Being hit against the wall so cruelly didn't happen at all. Apparently she shared more dragon power, and her own physique was as strong as a giant dragon. Roar. A black dragon suddenly bit Garen's wing from behind. Garen swung it casually, and the black dragon was suddenly driven by his wings and hit the cave wall hard. A large number of runes appeared on the cave wall. The cave wall was not broken, but the black dragon was hit with bleeding from its orifices and became dizzy. Bang. 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 After 3 consecutive blows, the sharp claws on Garen's wings let go of the black dragon, allowing him to fall. Basically no resistance. It's your turn next. Garen looked at Isolaya. The malicious eyes immediately made the little girl shiver. No, you can't do this to me, she screamed. You can sneak attack me, why can't I repay you this way? Garen grinned, or, you have another choice. What choice? Let me eat you. Garen made a vicious look. Ah, Isolaya cried. You are dead. You are dead. How dare you bully me? My father will not let you go. The sharp cries made Garen feel more and more harsh, and his eardrums hurt more and more. Stop crying. Stop crying, he yelled. But the sound got louder and louder. It stung him so much that he felt dizzy. Wow. I'm going to die, Isolaya continued to cry. Garen felt something sticky start to flow from his ears. He touched it and it turned out to be white dragon blood. He quickly threw Isolaya out. But a terrifying force froze her in mid-air. Isolaya's crying continued, but her eyes had a faint white-silver luster. Garen felt weak. He glanced at his condition and found that his average attributes were weakened by 10 points due to the sound. He didn't dare to stay any longer and rushed towards the exit of the cave. This dragon mage is indeed too weird. He glanced at the 8 giant dragons on the ground. These guys were actually lying on the ground chatting with each other. Only the black dragon was grunting and wiping the blood on his body with a look of displeasure. I'm just saying this guy can't hold on, right? Zilong said, lying on his back. When Isolaya performs her unique skills, she is unmatched by anyone. She is indeed the direct bloodline of that lord. It seems that another companion will join us soon. Isn't this great? This time this one is definitely not as strong as usual. All 8 of us were easily knocked over by him. You are a purple dragon and come to compete with us, aren't you looking for a fight? Let's see how long he can last. I guess 10 seconds. I guess for a minute, he is obviously immune to level 9 spells. Tisk tisk, no wonder the eldest lady has such a strong need for the first time. She is immune to level 9 spells at just a few years old. You can imagine how powerful she will be in the future. I'm afraid it's a bit troublesome. You have such a strong talent at such a young age. If Tiamat knew about it? It's okay. This is Snow City and Ola's territory. Tiamat can only be arrogant in Purgatory and the Abyss. Several giant dragons were apparently immune to sound waves due to their contractual relationship, and were still in the mood to chat on the ground. But Garen was not in such a good mood. He felt that the scales all over his body were loosening. The power of this sound wave seemed to be equivalent to the level 9 Banshee howl. It was even more powerful and it was continuous. Although he was immune to level 9 level spell, but this long-lasting damage is attached. Boom! Garen slammed into the transparent barrier at the entrance of the cave. A circle of clear ripples was created. The huge force even caused the entire cave to shake. Only then did the 8-headed dragons look over in shock. Obviously, he didn't expect Garen's power to be so powerful. Isolaya also paused for a moment, and her voice suddenly stopped. The white silver in his eyes finally faded away. Garen glanced at her with pain all over his body, and finally understood the fundamental reason why the third elder warned him to avoid the dragon mage before leaving. This guy was really weird. The power just now obviously cannot be used by ordinary people at will. It is obvious that Isolaya hides a deep secret. This kind of secret must be related to the top secrets of arcanists. He didn't want to come into contact with such high-end things so early. Another hard hit. With a bang, the cave wall shattered, the entire cave twisted directly, and the surrounding scene changed instantly. Garen suddenly found that he had returned to the block in front of the hotel where he had left earlier. There were already guards and patrolling flying dragons around. His sudden appearance did not cause panic among the people around him. Instead, another slender and elegant blue dragon immediately came forward. "You look okay," Blue Dragon was a little surprised. "Don't worry, Isolaya has been taken to teach her a lesson by the Tower Master. She was too reckless in this incident. The Tower Master will give a satisfactory explanation and compensation to all the dragons. There are a large group of second and third level elites constantly patrolling and surrounding the place, and there are also several powerful auras that are vague and uncertain. Obviously this attack caused a very bad response in Snow City." The blue dragon stopped Garen from looking embarrassed, and felt a little surprised and regretful in his heart. If Garen succeeds in signing a contract with Isolaya this time, it will be easier to deal with. Now that the contract has not been completed, the Silver Tower will definitely give the Dragon Clan a satisfactory answer. Otherwise, any Dragon Clan with some talent will be forced to sign the contract if they enter the Snow City. Then if you think about the cooperation between the Dragon Clan and Snow City, it will be really troublesome. Several old dragons holding white scepters flew over from a distance and landed gently on the ground next to Garen. "Thank you, Tiamat. Lord Garen, you are okay. We have submitted stern representations to the Silver Tower. Don't worry, we will definitely get justice for you this time. They have the spirit of Bailong Mountain in them. The badge is obviously the representative of the power of White Dragon Mountain. He also has strong dragon god power. He is obviously the dragon priest of Tiamat. He came here as soon as possible at this time, obviously to show his goodwill. Garen smiled back and said a few polite words to express his gratitude. Soon, a group of dragons sent Galleon to a hotel to rest. Of course, it was not the original hotel, but a different one. Ken and Annie also came quickly, followed closely by a powerful adult black dragon. Another courtesy, this black dragon is a level 10 black dragon expert in Snow City who is responsible for the coordination between humans and dragons. Apparently Ken and Annie also went to move reinforcements. In addition, several white dragons and contract owners who had signed eternal life contracts with the nobles of Snow City rushed over to show their support. Garen also received them one by one. The representative of Silver Tower, thinking that an 8th level old mage had arrived, expressed deep condolences and apology to Garen on behalf of Silver Tower, and also gave many compensation options. The matter caused by the dragon mage was finally settled, but Garen was indeed a little more wary of that Isolaya. Those white and silver eyes are very divine. In a store somewhere in Dragon City, Garen and the 2 dragon guards were wandering around in a large store. All kinds of giant beasts are walking around in the shop. There is not a human being at all here. They are all huge beasts. Dragons are the main customers here, and the rest are mostly weird dragon beasts or highly intelligent giant beasts. The boss is a huge 8-clawed octopus that is tens of meters tall. Each of its tentacles has eyes. It is a natural monitoring instrument. The shops sell mostly all kinds of rare and shiny things, including enchanted items and natural treasures, gem crystal lamps. There are also some mysterious items of unknown origin, and the lowest asking prices are millions of gold coins, which is no ordinary trap. Garen stood behind the 2 big-headed monsters and looked at a transparent crystal ball on the counter. "How much does this cost, boss?" He squeezed in, took out the crystal ball, and asked. One of the octopus monster's tentacles bounced over and looked Garen up and down. 20 million, no 2 prices. The void crystal can be used to imprison alien souls up to level 8 or above and below level 10. It is necessary for building a mage tower. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1306. Garen nodded. This is a must-have item for building a high-level mage tower. This item alone costs 20 million. Although it is a bit watery, it is also conceivable that the materials required to build a top-level mage tower are indeed very expensive. After his encounter with Isolaya, he received some compensation from the Silver Tower, which was a batch of various rare treasures worth hundreds of millions, all of which were the shiny type that the Dragon clan loved. Then with this wealth, he began to search around the city for relevant material consumption for the construction of the Mage Tower, and calculated the costs himself. Over the past few days, he had indeed made a rough calculation, and the overall cost was only higher than what the Wing King had said. At the same time, he has gained something in these days, which is to thoroughly understand the environment of Snow City. This city is filled with idle mercenaries and travelers between the 2nd and 5th levels. Battle mages, mercenary warriors, berserker warriors, barbarians, and dwarves are the most common, followed by humans. Most of the purebred humans here are high level. Then there are humanoid bloodlines, such as mixed half-elves, barbarians, and humans. There are also many human and succubus hybrids. Just like the mage apprentice when he first welcomed Garen, he was actually made of thin succubus blood. Generally, pure human beings who dare to come here are at least the archmage level. This is the city of mages. Archmages are not very valuable here and can be found everywhere. At a glance on the street, you can sense 1 or 2 presences whose auras are so subtle that even Garen feels dangerous. No wonder Snow City can be compared to the entire empire as a city. Garen finally figured out the price of the items, and went directly to the bookstore to buy a complete encyclopedia of arcane basic spells. He spent more than 100,000 gold coins and asked Ken to buy basic materials for various spell research for him based on the encyclopedia. He himself took Annie to the Mage Tower in the inner city where the Winged King was located. Passing through the Dragon City is the Dwarf City. Since landing is not allowed, Garen directly chose to go directly to the contact address left by the Flying Winged King through the teleportation array at the entrance of the Dwarf City. The transmission speed was very fast, and Garen directly arrived at the Flying Winged King's Mage Tower, the Black Crow Tower. Please wait a moment, the Tower Master is giving daily fixed treatment to the distinguished guests. The mage apprentice was a young, beautiful, and plump girl. After giving Garen a cup of hot strong tea, he explained in a low voice. Garen has shrunk to the size of a baby dragon, so he can still sit on a larger chair without any problem. Annie couldn't help but lay down on the ground beside her to rest. A pair of dragon eyes always look around vigilantly. The Black Crow Tower is one of the tallest among hundreds of mage towers. This is also related to the status of the Flying Winged King. He is a member of Snow City and a member of the Grey Shadow Parliament. He determines the rights of the entire Snow City. One of the highest beings. After all, level 12 beings can't just appear anywhere. Reaching this level with his power is nothing. Garen waited for a while, and soon the Winged King flashed to this floor with a cane. His face looked a little tired, as if he had spent a lot of energy. Garen stood up. Dear Counselor Flying Winged King, good day. Powerful white dragon genius, I heard about your reputation just after arriving in the city. Haha, did you come to me to treat some being? As a famous healer, he is one of the best in the entire Snow City. The two pretended not to know each other. Of course not. That's why I came here. Garen flicked his nails, and suddenly a ball of white mist flew out of his fingertips, automatically forming a clear pattern in mid-air. Showing his superb cold control skills. The pattern displayed was fleeting. It was simply a meaningless symbol, just the meaning agreed upon by the two of them. This means that Garen is ready to fulfill the contract. A smile appeared on Fei Wang's face. I understand. When do you plan to go? He asked. About going to the Abyss Plane to participate in the bloody battle. It doesn't matter at any time, I'm always ready. Garen replied affirmatively. In 50 years, he needs to improve himself as soon as possible, and hunting souls in bloody battles is the best choice and the fastest way. The premise is that he can survive. Get ready. The supplies you need must not be less. Otherwise, you won't know how valuable it is until you don't have it when you need it, the Winged King reminded him kindly. Garen nodded. He also came here to buy some high-quality therapeutic drugs from the Winged King. The bloody battle in the Abyss was a terrifying war ranging from low level to high level. Even as a high-end 9th level existence, he could not underestimate the harsh environment there. He didn't want to stay in Snow City for a moment. Garen had an intuition that the dragon mage Isolaya would never give up. He simply planned to enter the bloody battle quickly. The two entered a room alone. The Flying Winged King sprinkled a large amount of isolation powder and erected a barrier to isolate the divine power, forming an absolutely safe conversation environment. Okay, I have prepared all the things you need, including advanced teleportation scrolls, positioning stones, advanced recovery ointments, and temporary shelter guards. Because you are immune to level 9 spells, many buff scrolls are not effective on you, the Winged King warned. You must be careful. It is the permanent battlefield of the Beidja demon and Tannery. Try not to expose your full strength as much as possible. Whether it is the Abyss or the 9 Hells, there are people who are comparable to demigods. There are existences, and even evil gods live in a certain layer of it. I don't want you to die there early, and eventually even your body will be made into materials. In this way, our contractual cooperation will be ruined. One last question, are you sure? Do you really want to go to a bloody battle? He asked seriously. Okay, Garen nodded. He knew that bloody battles were dangerous, but that was also the place where he grew most rapidly. Here on the main material interface, if he wanted to reach the point he wanted, he would need too many magic cores. He has recently felt that his body is undergoing some strange changes, and spines have begun to grow on his back. It is obvious that he is about to enter a new evolutionary form. And he also wanted to see what the powerful and terrifying war between the legendary Tanarari and Beiju, demons and devils, was like. Whether it is potential points or nine-sided bodies, a large number of souls are required to be stolen. This is a taboo on the main material plane and is easily discovered by gods, but it does not matter in the abyss. It's not easy to find someone more suitable than you, so I wish you good luck, Wing King said with some regret. But I believe that we demon kings are all existences that have gone through hundreds of battles. There is no way we can fall into this kind of world casually. That's natural, Garen grinned. This is your thing. Wing King handed over a little ring. Garen took it and glanced at the contents. Including the agreed upon semi-artifact, all preparations are included. Food, drinking water, medicine, etc. Need armor and weapons. What kind of armor is as hard as my scales? Weapons. My claws are more terrifying than any weapons, Garen said nonchalantly. Yes, Winged King nodded. What's the specific time? I can make preparations. Just for today. Although he only stayed in a small corner of Snow City for a few days and did not fully feel the atmosphere of the entire city, Garen no longer wanted to stay here. He always felt that he was being targeted by Dragon Mage. Strange. My two dragon guards told them the truth directly. After I leave, I don't want to be a drag on them. You are really innocent when you say that the 8th level existence is a drag. The Winged King shook his head. In addition, you must be careful when using Anna's Skull of Despair. In the abyss, almost all demons and devils are very sensitive to souls and beliefs. Easy to spot. I understand, Garen nodded. In addition to its huge potential, the biggest role of this thing is to gather soul power. It can collect the souls of those who died in battle on the battlefield, but it must be hidden. After all, the collection of souls comes from the abyss. Snatching meat from his mouth. Is there any specific information about the abyss? Only the Wanyuan Plain. There are many steel fortresses built by devils there, but the management is very strict. You can only go to the devil's side to participate in the war, the Winged King explained. What about the previous demon kings? Without contact, the chaotic nature of the abyss will disconnect all ongoing connections with the main material plane, and we will not be able to stay connected at any time. Garen asked about some information about the abyss one by one. Compare it with the information seen by An. There are two main types of creatures at the bottom of the abyss. One is the demonic insects, which are the so-called abyss maggots. They are the most basic form of all demons, and will gradually evolve as the fittest survive and the weak eat the strong. The second type is the petitioner. It is a kind of twisted soul formed by assimilation after the soul has been corrupted and polluted by the abyss. They are the lowest workers, enslaved, and even filled into various creations as materials for making entropy ships. After that, there are various strange forms of demons, among which the Tanarari demons are the most powerful group and the first main force in the bloody war against demons. After roughly understanding the situation, Garen found some partial maps of the abyss. In the most recent maps, the terrain of the abyss would change randomly, making long-term storage basically useless. From the Winged King, he also received an additional piece of news. The largest space-time dimensional rift had opened somewhere in the south, and a large number of void creatures of all types had begun to emerge. Priests of the major gods had already gone there, and even priests appeared. And Messenger. The Lord of the Void and the True Spirits have begun large-scale war preparations, trying to capture as much territory as possible as a base. While the attention of all the gods is there, the hidden demon kings can also move and grow as quickly as possible, and strive to be able to activate together 50 years later. After everything was clear, Garen asked the two dragon guards to go back directly, and then stayed to learn from the Flying Wing King about the various conditions for arcane improvement. Of course, it was paid, and finally took the Despair Skull semi-artifact. Returned to the hotel with the signed contract. The only thing he needs to do before going to the bloody battle is to absorb a large amount of potential energy from the head of despair. If everything goes well, maybe he can make a new leap before and after this bloody battle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1307. Dusk. Black Crow Tower. Just as Garen and the other dragons left, the door of Black Crow Tower was slammed open by a petite figure. Ha ha ha. This lady is back again. Garen. Get out of here. Let's see if you survive this time. The petite dragon mage laughed wildly with his hands on his hips, followed by a stupid big man with a dull expression. This is a tall man covered in black armor held a huge hammer more than 2 meters long in his hand. Where's Garen? Where's Garen? I've obviously received intelligence that he's coming here, Isolaya yelled. The waiters on the first floor of the Black Crow Tower looked at her calmly, and a foreman mage stepped forward to salute her respectfully. Dear Miss Dragon Mage, Mr. Garen has been away for a while. Leave. What about Master Black Crow? Isolaya's eyes widened. I'm leaving too. I went out to prepare some materials, the female mage replied in a low voice. That old immortal, Isolaya muttered in a low voice, he actually left? Okay, I'm unlucky. Did that kid Garen say where he lived when he left? Well, there's no such thing, the female mage was stunned. How much revenge is this, and she actually wants to chase after her residence? The female mage looked curiously at the man behind Isolaya. Inadvertently, she glanced at the green and black tattoos on a man's body, and suddenly the hair on her body stood up and she trembled violently. Law enforcement officer. She was shocked. This dragon mage actually called out the law enforcement officer. This was the most important top elite of the Silver Tower. The existence of the legendary 9th level peak, coupled with various top-level equipment, can directly compete with even the 10th level for a long time. Moreover, the law enforcement officer can also summon invisible law enforcement officers to assist. These law enforcement officers are all level 8, and they are all standard killing machines, very terrifying and cruel. Well, he's lucky this time. Isolaya was unhappy because she couldn't get any news from Garen. He turned around, violently kicked open the door behind him and walked out. The stupid guy followed him out in a daze. All the high-level beings who came to the Black Crow Tower along the way were afraid to avoid them. No one could reach the high-level beings above level 7 without decades of hard work. They had basic experience and identification abilities. There are still some. As a city of mages, there are almost no high-level individual warriors here. What is there are all extremely sane mages. Although some mages are impulsive, the biggest thing all mages have in common is that they are not stupid. Law enforcement officers are the most violent agencies that cannot be messed with in Snow City. This is something that everyone who comes to Snow City will understand clearly. Therefore, there was no conflict or quarrel at all. Isolaya led the people away with striding steps, like the god of plague. Wait for more than 10 minutes after she leaves. Call. A relaxing sound of exhalation came from a room at the top of the Black Crow Tower. Spiral Hotel. The special envoy from Bailong Mountain has been waiting for you for a long time. Long 11 from the hotel whispered to Jia Long. A first-level sound transmission technique was solidified on the small button, and the sound was directly transmitted into Garen's ears. He was wearing Annie and Ken, and just returned to the hotel when he heard the waiter talk about the news. The envoy of Bailong Mountain, Garen thought about it and knew what the purpose of the other party was. How many dragons are there in total? There are 2 of them, both in human form. Waiter Long 11 replied in a low voice. In human form, Garen was slightly shocked, knowing that a big shot was coming, someone who could use the ultimate transformation technique on his own, and the last one was a 9th level arcane master. Almost every one of these beings was a core member of Baelong Mountain. 2 of them came, and they took him very seriously. Lord Garen, be careful, Baelong Mountain has always had a bad relationship with us, Ken reminded in a low voice. I know. Garen nodded slightly and gave Annie a look. The 3 of them walked towards the teleportation point in their cave together. Number plates were erected on dozens of teleportation points. Looking for the one he found, Garen stepped in. There was a bright light in front of my eyes, and the colored light shone for a short while, and then my eyes suddenly lit up. He soon emerged into a vast central cavern like a spacious beehive. The cave is white and covered with frost. Blue dragons and white dragons fly in and out. In the corner, there are several human-looking dragons standing next to several human wine cabinets. They are only wearing simple summer clothes, which is very abrupt. Garen knew that in such an environment where the temperature in the central cave is as low as tens of degrees below zero, even high-level experts, as long as they do not have special physiques, must maintain a constant temperature force field. The few human beings in front of him who were talking to each other with calm expressions, obviously there is no magic fluctuation, but if you can stay here naturally, then you are obviously not a human race. The badge of Baelong Mountain. Annie's sharp eyes immediately saw the white dragon-shaped badges worn on the chests of 2 men and women. It was a simple outline of the white dragon's body, concise and vivid. Garen took the initiative to greet him. The 2 envoys from Baelong Mountain also saw Garen coming over, and the rest of the people around them left politely. Most of these people were ultimate transformation masters who had a friendly relationship with Baelong Mountain. The last one was at level 9, and there was a lady at level 10 among them, who smiled kindly at Garen. Garen quickly responded with a polite smile. Level 9 and level 10 are very critical hurdles. Generally speaking, there are people who are difficult to cross at all. Those who are stuck on the threshold of level 9 and cannot enter. There are dozens if not hundreds of people in Snow City, but among them, those who reach level 10 can almost all become snowmen. Dungeon Counselor. This woman is not a congressman, she is obviously a top powerhouse from the outside world. After all, the 10th level counselors also have friends. But the most important thing is not these, but that every 10th level strong person will have the shadow of a powerful enough force behind him. After watching the top powerhouse leave, Garen turned around and politely saluted the 2 Baelong Mountain envoys. 2 envoys, I heard that you came to see me as soon as I came back. If I remember correctly, our clan and Baelong Mountain have never been in harmony, right? He said it bluntly, without mincing words. The male envoy from Baelong Mountain frowned slightly, but immediately relaxed. That's true, but he glanced at the 2 white dragons behind Garen. For real white dragon geniuses, the boundaries of the clan should not be so clear. No matter what, we are all the White Dragon clan. Don't you think so? He smiled slightly, showing a friendly attitude. Okay, there is no doubt about this, so what is the purpose of your coming? Garen asked bluntly. Of course I want you to return to our Baelong Mountain clan. The female messenger next to her smiled slightly and said loudly. Return? Garen was not surprised. His reputation had obviously spread to Baelong Mountain through the Dungeon and Snow City Dragon Master. It was only a matter of time before it spread to Baelong Mountain. Knowing that such a genius had emerged from Baelong, only a fool would do it. Will easily let go of recruiting opportunities. Of course, our clan has the best inheritance crystals. A large number of ancient dragons have left the most precious inheritance, semi-artifacts, artifacts, and you can even be guided by the incarnation of Tiamat. As long as you have enough talent, accumulation will not be anything. Question. The most important thing is that you can get protection from Bailong Mountain. As long as you hand over the pearl of the temple, the male envoy smiled and said the most important purpose of their coming. Mage Dragon has asked the law enforcement officer to arrest you. You don't know this, right? Now as long as you take out the pearl of the temple, we can protect you in the name of Bailong Mountain. Even the Silver Tower cannot ignore Bailong Mountain. Position. The female messenger raised her chin slightly and said. Garen and Anikin thought they had heard wrongly, and their faces clearly showed that they had not heard clearly. Is Bailong Mountain here to be funny? This is Garen's only thought now. He actually set his sights on the temple pearl. It was rumored that Bailong Mountain was becoming more and more arrogant and domineering. I originally thought it was just a rumor, but after actually getting in touch with it, Garen felt that the rumors did have some truth. The pearl of the temple is a treasure. With your strength, if it is publicized, I am afraid that even the demigods will be moved. By then, you will not have the strength to protect it. Rather than keeping such a curse in your hands, it is better to use it in exchange for friendship with Bailong Mountain. Join us and gain greater protection, the female messenger said with a hint of arrogance. Asylum, Garen smiled instead of getting angry. Who do you think I, Galen, need to protect? The law enforcement officers at the top of the 9th level and all kinds of equipment are enough to surround the existence of the 10th level. Are you sure you can escape? The male messenger's words sounded a bit threatening. Protect me? Just you? A coldness appeared on the corner of Garen's mouth. Are you kidding me? In Snow City, there is the Winged King. Although he cannot resolve time and space spells above level 8, the Winged King will not sit idly by. The 12-level Great Arcanist and the Black Man who can monitor the whole city at any time. Crow Tower is not just a toy. Bailong Mountain is the supreme White Dragon Holy Land. There are countless White Dragon geniuses trying to join us. It seems that you haven't figured out the situation yet. The male envoy's tone became colder. It's not that we are begging you to join, but because of the temple. I only let you join for Zhu's sake. Without top secret knowledge, it will be almost impossible for you to break through to level 10 in the future. Whether I can break through or not is not up to you. I don't believe that all the white dragons who have not joined Bailong Mountain can't break through, Garen said disdainfully. You're right, there really is no breakthrough, the female messenger sneered. Then I will be the first one. Garen's heart was frightened, but he still glanced at her coldly. Let's go. Annie and Ken followed him and glared at the two messengers unkindly. I don't know whether to live or die, Garen heard the messenger's curse coming from behind him. He can predict that the other party is unlikely to spread the news about the temple pearl. After all, the more people know about it, the more people are willing to snatch it. But this conflict also made him extremely dissatisfied with the condescending attitude of Bailong Mountain. As the only White Dragon Holy Land where the ancient White Dragon exists, it has always had such an attitude towards its fellow clansmen. No wonder the clan has always been disgusted with Bailong Mountain. Dragon Master actually invited the law enforcement officer? If it is true, Lord Garen, you may be in real trouble, and whispered behind Garen. Law enforcement officer. Garen's eyes turned cold. Dragon Mage was indeed a troublemaker. It didn't take long for him to find a powerful helper who was infinitely close to the 10th level. Sure enough, it is necessary to leave the Snow City as soon as possible. It is a top priority to go back and absorb the potential points in the semi-artifact immediately. Boom. At this moment, there was a loud bang in the entire hotel, and there was a faint sound of cracking and explosions coming from the direction of the door. Ha 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 ha. Let's see where you run this time. Galen, get out of here, Isalia's voice echoed directly over the entire hotel. The sound waves even turned into vibrations and rumbled into the underground cave. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1308. Garen's steps froze. It's Dragon Mage, Ken said angrily, "Sir, what should we do? Run away? With the law enforcement officers here, we have no chance to resist." Annie was a little scared. "Don't panic," Garen said calmly, "come out with me and take a look." At the door of the hotel, Isolaya was laughing loudly with her hands on her hips. Her petite body was dressed in a jet black gothic silk dress, with 2 large black silk bows tied on her head. She looked extremely cute. "Get out of here quickly. I want to avenge you for the last time I was beaten," she roared wildly. The entire reception hall of the hotel was buzzing with her harsh voice. The dragons who were responsible for welcoming guests huddled helplessly in the corner. The boss also rushed to the scene. He was a big black dragon with a thick head and body, but he couldn't do anything when facing Isolaya, although the people from Silver Tower would come to compensate later. Loss, however. The surroundings were filled with other dragons watching the fun, and translucent spheres of peeping eyes appeared in the sky. These were mages using magic to watch the show from a long distance away. The Dragon City has not been so lively for a long time. For mages, because they hate noisy, almost no one will yell loudly, except for Isolaya. "Dragon Mage is going crazy again," a voice snickered. "Let's see who is unlucky this time." As for Garen, only White Dragon has appeared recently. Garen, the top genius who is known as the future White Dragon King, I don't know if he is the one he is talking about. I heard that Garen had sex with the Dragon Master on the street a few days ago. One fight, this time he may be seeking revenge. I just finished mixing the calming potion and came over to watch a free drama. You are really in good spirits. There are more and more people and dragons watching around, and the noisy discussions and inquiries are getting louder and louder. Just when Isolaya was about to become impatient, a line of 3-headed white dragons finally appeared in the hotel's teleportation array. It was the 3 Gallons, and then a group of other dragon clans appeared immediately, including 2 envoys from Bailong Mountain. Watching in amusement how Garen dealt with it. The law enforcers carry a lot of equipment aimed at dragons. Given the wealth of the Silver Tower, it is estimated that the high-end enchanted equipment is thrown away as bombs. "I want to see how this kid handles the law enforcement officers," the male messenger sneered and sent the message. "Be careful not to let him escape. As long as you take action, be ready to strike at any time. The Pearl of the Temple is determined to be obtained without any loss," the female messenger warned. The 2 men quietly took out 2 rings, one black and one white, and pointed their fingers on the rings. Garen's 3-headed dragon walked out of the transfer point. Garen's body was still in the form of a baby dragon. It looked very small and mini, that is, it looked like a baby dragon. The 2 adult dragon guards behind him looked even more powerful and tall. Garen, Isolaya just saw Garen in the form of a young dragon and was slightly startled before she could react. Garen didn't look at her, but focused his eyes directly on the big stupid man behind her. He is also the 9th level peak person who can threaten the 10th level, and he is extremely concerned about the special temperament of the opponent. That is something that only exists in people who often fight beyond the level. "Catch him," Isolaya shouted. The stupid big man in black armor suddenly started up like a tank. His armor glowed with a faint golden light in a very short time, as if the gold was released from the black edge. With a roar, his whole body rushed straight towards Garen. "Critical," the law enforcement officer roared, and soldiers with heavy shields that were as transparent as liquid suddenly appeared in the air next to them. Their bodies were directly translucent, and they surrounded Garen from all directions. The huge force stamped on the ground, making a muffled thunder. A huge shock. Boom. The law enforcer's hammer hit Garen hard on the head. The extremely bloody killing intent soared into the sky, and the blood-colored aura that turned into substance lingered around Garen. Roar. Garen also roared wildly, and the entire dragon body suddenly expanded to twice the size of an adult dragon, and it fiercely faced the opponent. Platinum gold luster appeared on his scales, shining brightly. The violent collision between the two heavy creatures smashed them together. Bang! Boom! The eye-catching air shock ripples spread out in a circle, shaking the surrounding dragons to the point where they were thrown into confusion. Garen roared to the sky, directly knocking the law enforcement officer back again and again. He spread his wings, and the sharp claws on the wings bounced away several heavy shield warriors from both sides, but several transparent warriors still hit him hard. On the body. Call. A strong dragon's power spread out, and similarly, a circle of bloody red aura emitted from the law enforcement officers. It was their unique killing aura, which directly offset the dragon's power. The heavy hammer hit hard from below, and the front collided with Garen's front paw. Golden sparks exploded, and colorful energy ripples spread. Dozens of negative effects on the heavy hammer were automatically activated, and most of them were Garen was immune, and only a black poison stained his dragon claws, making him take 2 steps back. Although the opponent's power is not as strong as his, it still has a strong repelling effect. Law enforcement summons, the stupid man roared loudly and threw the heavy hammer into the sky. Click. A white thunderbolt fell from the sky, and the current as thick as a bucket fell hard, hitting Garen in the head. At this moment, Garen whipped his tail hard on the waist of the silly big man who had just finished casting the spell. There was a bang, blood splashed out, and the law enforcement officer was directly hit in the waist, spilling a large amount of blood. The current also completely enveloped the galleons. It's useless. Garen's voice came from the current. My body is immune to even 9th level spell effects. The law enforcer silently got up from the ground without making a sound. His waist was almost severed by a tail, and blood slowly flowed out from the gaps in his armor. It looked like he had been severely injured. Although you are stronger than me, the law enforcement officer said calmly, but I still won. At this moment, a huge warhammer with a thickness of tens of meters suddenly fell from the sky. It was the warhammer he threw just now. At this moment, it was actually magnified dozens of times and smashed down hard. Garen raised his head. Although the surrounding electric current could not hurt him, it brought a short-term physical restraint effect, preventing him from leaving his position. The opponent is also a battle-experienced warrior with very few flaws to exploit, and he uses an honest and rough fighting method. The best way to deal with it is to confront him head-on. Otherwise, the opponent will gain more and more advantages and be completely overwhelmed. He raised his head and looked at the warhammer that hit it hard, growled, and grabbed it with his other claw. As soon as he made contact, he knew something was wrong. The power coming from the warhammer far exceeded his limit. It couldn't be coming from a living thing. It must be a special way to use magic to accelerate and amplify the power and impact. Terrifying power burst out from the warhammer. This kind of power is enough to completely wipe out a hill in the outside world, but here, it just explodes into a ball of dazzling white light. Covered by the light, Garen's figure rushed in front of Isolaya in an instant, and the dragon's claws fiercely grabbed the little guy. Isolaya opened her mouth and was about to scream, staring at Garen fiercely. The sound was about to explode from her throat. Enough, a majestic voice sounded from the sky. The power of spells such as Command Shock instantly falls on all creatures present. Including Garen, including Isolaya who was about to scream, everyone was frozen. Garen breathed a sigh of relief. He had originally intended to stimulate Isolaya to make that powerful scream to break the deadlock. There were so many people here, and once that scream started again, the accidental injuries would be too serious. This also forced the top beings who were watching to take action to stop it. Standing on the spot, Garen glanced at his broken dragon claw nails. This was the price for his head-on confrontation with the falling warhammer. He used the broken nails as a means to divert the impact and turned it into a shock that was transmitted to the ground under his feet. As someone at the pinnacle of martial arts, he still knows this skill. Although the opponent was also experienced in many battles, it pales in comparison to him as the Demon King. All energy shock ripples slowly calmed down. Amid the power of confinement, Isolaya glared at Garen unwillingly, her cheeks almost bulging into small buns. Laugh. A white light exploded on her body, teleporting her and the law enforcement officer away and disappearing without a trace. Only then did the restraining force slowly relax. Garen moved his body and flicked his huge dragon tail. The body, which was much taller than the surrounding dragons, clearly had a powerful deterrent effect. Finally sent away this little plague god, he also breathed a sigh of relief. He was tired from beating, and couldn't kill but couldn't. If he couldn't offend him, he couldn't hide. It seems that heading to the bloody battle immediately is the right way. Just as he turned around, he suddenly felt a slight pain in his tail. Suddenly something didn't feel right. With his defense, how could he feel pain inexplicably? Ah! There was a cry of pain behind him, and when he looked back, he saw that the two Baelong Mountain envoys were holding two black spikes and were tied to the spot by a black force, unable to move. Only then did Garen realize that the black necklace around his neck had been revealed at some point. That was given to him by an as the key to teleport into the mysterious realm. Just when he was stunned. It's the dragon of disaster, a sharp voice rose into the sky, filled with fear, anger, hatred, and murderous intent. Above the sky, a huge whirlpool of thunderclouds suddenly condensed, and countless purple thunder and lightning gathered into a huge face looking at Garen. The restraining force just now suddenly reappeared, suppressing him from all sides. There was a rumble in the sky, and an extremely sharp dragon spear was shot out. The huge power beyond the 10th level drove countless surrounding air and elements to spontaneously condense, turning into rounds of mysterious patterns on the dragon spear. It's a spontaneous attack formation for the entire Snow City, a mage shouted in shock and anger. Run away. Garen was in a trance, affected by some kind of mental field and unable to react, so he could only stand there blankly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1309. I object. At the top of the Silver Tower, in a colorful space surrounded by several earth-yellow spheres, in the center, the Winged King and the other council members gathered here. If Garen looks here, he will find that the earthy yellow sphere here is exactly the same as the shapes of the major planes he saw when he traveled here. I object. After King Fei spoke, another congressman who always agreed with him slowly spoke. Another councilman said, I reserve my opinion. An old man in white robes standing at the highest point wore one-sided gold-rimmed glasses and held a short white oak staff. He held it in his hand like a small hammer and struck it repeatedly. The palm of the other hand. The automatic defense mechanism has been activated. Regarding the disposal of White Dragon Galen or whether to hand over Galen to Baelong Mountain, it is related to the respective attitudes of Baelong Mountain and the White Dragon clan who have surrendered to the Dalata Empire clan. Although you may feel that voting it seems a bit too serious and formal, but this choice is enough for us to vote, the old man said in a slow voice. A mere little white dragon is nothing, but the key is the attitude of the two major forces. Although Baelong Mountain is far stronger than the clan, they may not necessarily be our strength. So I agree to support the clan of female congressmen, the man in red robe whispered. The fifth and last congressman wore a round hat studded with diamonds, and his smiling fat face seemed completely frozen. I think it would be a big gain if Baelong Mountain can tilt towards us because of this. Although I, Dalata, have the support of many dragon clans, this is only on the surface. In fact, everyone knows it well. The dragon clan only regards our empire as a place to train new recruits. Although the White Dragon clan has surrendered to us, their strength is too weak. The most powerful elder is only a pseudo 10th level and there are ancient dragons in Baelong Mountain. But this handling is related to the attitude of the major dragon clans towards us, especially since the trouble this time was caused by little Isolaya. The Winged King frowned. I'm skeptical of Diamond King's opinion. Baelongshan has always been arrogant, And it's not a question of whether he can look down on us, Delata. The Flying Wing King seems to be very supportive of the clan. Diamond King narrowed his eyes at him. Then, do you dare to bet against me once? What are you betting on? The Winged King was not willing to be outdone. The Canberra blade you won from me back then, I bet on whether this galleon can become the key to affecting the position between Bailong Mountain and the clan. If Bailong Mountain is willing to lean towards us because of this, then you give me the Canberra artifact. If you don't want to, then I will help you solidify something. The Winged King was slightly lost in thought. He was hesitating whether to insist on supporting Garen. King Diamond continued. I support handing galleons to White Dragon Mountain in exchange for their inclination towards us. What if this makes the clan angry and breaks away from us? One of the opposing members said in a low voice. Okay. That's the end of this issue. Now that the vote has been taken, let's make a decision based on the number of votes. The central speaker raised his short staff and waved it slightly, and the image of Garen in the city appeared among the 5 people. 3 votes against it and handed over to Bailongshan, 1 vote for neutrality and 1 vote for support. But what to do with the mark of the disaster dragon on Garen? King Diamond continued. The dragon of disaster. The speaker closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Suddenly, new changes appeared in the galleon image in the middle. The spear of lightning hung above Garen's head, falling at high speed, and only missed Garen's head by a small margin. He did not move or resist at all. A black necklace was looming around his neck. It was the teleportation necklace and gave him. Garen was paralyzed, and at the same time, his eyes were filled with countless hallucinations. It was the highly toxic toxin that was stabbed on the tail and quickly spread throughout the body. This poison is so overbearing that even with his current terrifying physique, he is actually paralyzed to the point of being unable to move. But he didn't know that the 2 Bailongshan envoys behind him were stunned and stunned. This is enough Psetsi poison to cause even the demigod dragon to faint after being stabbed. This guy didn't faint. It's incredible. And what is the black string of this necklace? I can't untie it. The 2 envoys struggled hard, using their 9th level peak spell abilities to continuously explode, but they still couldn't break free from the ropes on their bodies. The black rope extends from the necklace around Garen's neck. Where is An, the Shadow Dragon Queen and one of the 3 masters of the Dragon of Disaster? The formation spirits of the entire Snow City roared, and a thunderous face loomed in the thunder clouds in the sky, filled with incomparable anger. Garen slowly recovered from the toxin. His extremely abnormal physique was already immune to the toxin. It was just that the toxin was so terrifying that it paralyzed him for such a period of time, but it was already the limit. The power permeating the top of his head made his whole body tremble. This formation spirit was a terrifying existence that had survived for who knows how many years. Now it was so powerful that it was almost equivalent to half the power of the owner of the Silver Tower. The strength of the owner of the Silver Tower is the pinnacle of the mortal world, and half of him is at least level 13. Such pressure makes Garen's breathing slow, and he is so oppressed. The dragon power all over his body was tightly compressed into a ball, clinging to his skin and unable to get out at all. The physical quality was directly suppressed and dropped by an average of 20 points, leaving an average of only 60 points, which was a lot weaker. I don't know what you mean. It was naturally impossible for him to tell An's existence, whether it was for human reasons or for his own safety. Once he reveals An's whereabouts, not only will he lose his own safety, but he will also be convicted of colluding with the Dragon of Disaster. It is possible to be killed to vent your anger. I won't admit that I have the aura of that monster on me, the formation spirit roared angrily. Okay, Array Spirit, we are now responsible for this matter. You can go back and rest. The speaker's voice sounded again. A huge intimidating force forcibly suppressed the formation spirit, the thunder clouds dissipated, and the thunder and lightning spears also dispersed. You are not the Dragon of Disaster, or you didn't know that she was one of the 3 monarchs of the Dragon of Disaster when you came into contact with An, So this is excusable, but no matter what, you have to accept punishment because of the dragon of disaster. The speaker's voice came down from the sky. The winged king will be the sovereign person to deal with your punishment. With a snap, the winged king appeared directly in the sky in front of Garen, levitating and looking directly at Garen. Garen's heart suddenly moved. I deeply apologize for my ignorance and recklessness. Indeed, I may not even know that she is the dragon of disaster. He lowered his head. Then you are willing to accept punishment, Fei Wang winked at him. He had earned this right of disposal through hard work. Yes, I do, Garen said quickly. Behind them, Ken and Annie couldn't speak at all. They were directly restrained by the force field and could only worry. Garen was their clan's greatest hope. If there was anything seriously missing, they wouldn't be able to go back and explain it to the third elder. Well, the dragon of disaster has devoured countless lives. In order to absolve you of your guilt, I will send you to the abyss to undergo a bloody battle. If you can survive, all your guilt will be wiped away. The winged king did not wait for other council members to speak, and used his scepter. With a wave, a blood-red crack suddenly opened in front of Garen like an eye. Sent to the abyss. Hearing this punishment, even the speaker was in a daze. This was no longer a punishment, but a disguised form of asking Garen to die. What kind of place is the bloody battle in the abyss? If you don't fight until you die of exhaustion, it is impossible to escape. Without special recovery capabilities, you can only be permanently assimilated into the abyss and become a part of it. This punishment is too severe. Even the Diamond King thought so. At this moment, he felt that it was kind of him to support the handing over of Galan to Bailong Mountain. Looking at the Winged King in the picture, he felt that he needed to reposition the personality of the Winged King. Garen also showed a look of astonishment in cooperation, as if he couldn't believe what he heard. Before he could resist, the Winged King pointed his scepter, and the power of the 12th level Grand Arcanist unleashed his force field hand, grabbing him and throwing him into the crack. Laugh. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he felt like his whole body was spinning. He is a member of my Bailong Mountain. How dare you deal with him without permission? The voice of the Bailong Mountain messenger loomed behind him, getting farther and farther away, and soon Garen could no longer hear it. The blood-red tunnel flew before his eyes, as if he was traveling through a long, winding intestine. I don't know how long it took, but a bright light gradually appeared in front of me. Boom! He was like a fish breaking out of the water. The first thing he saw was the gray sky and the blood-red sun. Surrounded by endless black plains, there is nothing on the plain ground, except for large exposed white rocks, and no living things can be seen. The first important thing when coming to the abyss is to hide yourself first. Garen thought of the Winged King's advice. He quickly looked around and found no unusual creatures. Fortunately, he hurriedly dug his tail into the ground, drilling back and forth at high speed, and soon dug a large hole. After drilling his body inside, Garen released a circle of temporary reconnaissance guards around him to prevent any creatures from approaching, and he felt a little relieved. Luckily, there was no battle that attracted the attention of demons and demons. Let's absorb the despair head first. Without saying a word, he directly started to set up a barrier to isolate the breath. He had no problem with the low-level negative energy barrier, but it was impossible for a semi-artifact to have no breath escape. What he needed to do was absorb all the breath before it escaped. Clean. In the dark cave, Garen let the semi-artifact's skull of despair float in front of him. This skull looked no different from an ordinary human being, with golden flames burning in its eyes, and faint golden runes between its eyebrows. The purple mist surged out of his mouth and nose, and was then sucked in by Garen himself. He clearly saw that his potential point was rising rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this rate, I will be able to completely absorb all the breath in just 5 days. Garen estimated the time. If he hadn't been forced to come here early by accident, he wouldn't have had to be so worried. But now that things have happened, There is no use being helpless. Facing reality is the main thing. After calming down, he slowly lurked in the cave and absorbed the potential aura. Somewhere on the black plain a few kilometers away from Galleon, a huge beast was lying prostrate. This giant beast has the upper body of a giant dragon and the lower body of a spider. Its back is always burning with yellow flames, and its eyes are also golden vertical pupils, which are extremely ferocious. The giant beast is surrounded by many yellow bugs similar to earth beetles. They crawl around in large groups on the giant beast, as if they are cleaning his body. There is an inexplicable aura. It's near me. Abyss language. The giant beast suddenly spoke. It's the breath of a dragon, he sniffed. After moving his huge body was more than 10 meters long and 8 meters high. Everything except his back was covered with thick scale-like earth armor. Go and take a look. Countless beetles gathered around him and condensed into a humanoid state, which seemed to be a woman. No need, even a giant dragon can't escape the swarm of ice ants. In the evening the giant beast crawled down again. If it can survive the ice ant wave, it will be qualified for me to go and see it in person. It sets the rules. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1310. The sun gradually dimmed and sank below the horizon. A cold breath gradually filled the air. On the black plain, a large white tide gradually gushes out from a very far distance, rushing toward the area where Garen and the giant beast are. They strangely automatically bypass the location of the giant beast, as if turning a blind eye, and continued to surge forward, and soon arrived near Garen's location. Inside the cave, Garen vaguely felt some movement, but no movement was reported back from the security guards outside. He suppressed his uneasiness and continued to absorb the breath. Hiss. Suddenly, a slight sound like insects biting came from outside the cave. Beep. Suddenly, the invisible temporary guard sounded a sharp alarm. Garen was shocked and quickly stopped absorbing it, putting the semi-artifact into the space ring. Looking back towards the entrance of the cave, I saw that countless tiny white ants were pouring in from nowhere. A terrifying low temperature as low as 70 or 80 degrees below zero accompanied the influx of ant colonies, rushing in wildly. Ice ant tide. Garen naturally knew about this natural disaster. Each of these ice ants seemed very small, only as big as a human palm, but they were all genuine second-level creatures. Their bodies were fragile, but their teeth were fragile. Indestructible, even dragon scales are not a hard bone for them to chew on. Seeing so many ice ants rushing towards him, he was relieved. If it were fire ants, he would be more worried, but ice ants, who happened to be ice-type dragons, would be easier to deal with. Squirting out a breath of dragon breath, Garen's dragon breath now has the power of an adult dragon. The breath of ice suddenly makes the ice ants even more cheerful. In fact, their most threatening thing, besides their hard teeth, comes with strong low temperature. The low temperature of 70 to 80 degrees below zero continued to advance as they moved. Except for real ice and snow creatures, ordinary creatures simply couldn't bear it. Moreover, this low temperature is also mixed with some kind of ice toxin, but Garen's physique is immune to it. It may be very troublesome to change to a 9th level peak mage of the same level, because the mana will always be exhausted. Then sometimes when ice toxins enter, you can really only let the mermaid flesh, but Garen's own body is different. The large swarms of ice ants were sprayed by the Garan dragon's breath, and their movements slowed down. At the same time, the colder breath made them seem to feel that the existence on the opposite side looked like similar creatures. The biggest characteristic of this ice ant tide is that it only eats non-low temperature organisms. Baelong's blood is below zero, so he is a typical example of low temperature. So very easily, a large number of ice ants came in and then retreated. A false alarm. Garen let out a breath, but there was still a chill in his heart that couldn't be driven away. He looked around, but still didn't find anything strange. He breathed a sigh of relief and was about to continue absorbing when suddenly, a humanoid black shadow passed through the front of his body like smoke. Garen wanted to dodge, but was unable to do so in time, but he immediately discovered that the opponent actually passed through his body. It was as if there was no entity at all. At the same time, he felt that his body was slightly weak. The humanoid creatures gathered behind him and floated in the darkness of the cave. They were basically humanoid shapes made up of a ball of black smoke. They couldn't see their faces at all, only vague limbs. Virtual shadow, Garen was stunned for a moment. Isn't this a creature that should be in the world of the dead? Phantoms are very troublesome. Once they appear on the main material interface, they are like natural disasters. They are physically immune and have a 50% dodge rate even from enchantments and spell attacks. And every time they touch a creature, the opponent's power will weaken. This weakening of power is permanent and very annoying. Unless you kill the shadow that sucks your power, you will permanently lose the part of your power that was sucked away by it. Garen frowned slightly and looked at the phantom in front of him. The most troublesome thing for them was not this, but that phantoms usually appeared in groups. Every time they kill a creature, they develop it into their own spawn, becoming the next phantom. So under normal circumstances, phantoms appear in one group after another. As a top expert in physical attacks, what bothers Garen the most is the type of immunity to physical attacks. His spell power is only level 5, and he has no enchanted equipment. As soon as he thought of this, Garen saw more than a dozen phantoms appearing densely in the cave, and his scalp suddenly became numb. Trouble. The phantom's attack just now took away 0.5 of his strength. If so many phantoms pounced on him at the same time, wouldn't his 80+ strength be wiped out in just a few strokes? Originally, in the main material plane, he felt that he had a strong constitution and was immune to spells. He didn't care much about arcane spells. He thought that except for 8th level time and space spells, there was no power that could compete with him. However, after seeing the physical attack warhammer that used magic to strengthen it in Snow City, and the supernatural power that the phantom now has, he realized that purely taking the physical route is not the right path in this world. No wonder even the top warriors need enchanted equipment and artifacts. Surrounded by a group of shadows, Garen's mind was spinning rapidly, thinking of ways to escape. This is the restraint effect. Even an 8th level mage would be able to deal with it more easily than him. But not Galleons. More than a dozen phantoms rushed forward, and Garen couldn't dodge in such a small space. Moreover, although he was extremely fast, the speed of the phantoms was not bad at all. It was just short of teleportation. Obviously these phantoms were shadows or also high-grade goods. The leading figure appeared first. It chirped loudly and directed the others to rush forward. Garen opened his mouth and let out a big mouthful of dragon's breath, which hit 2 phantoms. Although his dragon's breath did not count as spell damage, it was also supernatural power damage and had a certain effect on the phantoms. The frost deceleration effect suddenly appeared on the 2 phantoms that were sprayed, but no damage was caused. As undead creatures, the cold could only reduce their speed, but not kill them. Garen suddenly hid to the right. Surrounded by more than a dozen phantoms, his body shrank suddenly, shrinking into the size of a tiny baby dragon, and then he rushed out of the gap in the encirclement by a hair's breadth. Strictly speaking, it is meaningless to divide this kind of advanced undead according to level. Only targeted tactics can eliminate them. Without targeted tactics, even top warriors can only be tortured to death by them. Garen dodged left and right in the cave, dodging the attack of the shadow by a hair's breadth every time. This made the shadow leading the team extremely angry. Chirp! He started shouting again. Immediately all the shadows moved more quickly. Garen saw an opportunity and rushed out of the cave and came to the ground. He remembered that his semi-artifact, the Despair Head, should have soul attributes and might be able to have an effect on this undead spirit. Thinking of this, he suddenly took out the head of despair from the space ring, grabbed it on his paws, and pressed it towards a phantom. The Despair Head looks like an ordinary human white skull, unremarkable. And after Garen came out, he let go of his hands and feet, and his 80-point speed was immediately fully utilized. Almost at the same time as he released his claws, he hit a shadow that was rushing towards him. Chirp! A scream. The phantom howled miserably and quickly retreated as if being burned by fire. It works, Garen was delighted. Continuing to follow the same pattern, his speed reached 80 points. After shrinking in size, he became even more flexible. The phantoms were thrown around by him. After a few encounters, he hit 5 phantoms with his Despair Head. Judging from the obvious size, lost a lot of body black smoke. The leading shadow became a little scared and began to make chirping sounds, as if it wanted to retreat. But Garen made a surprising discovery. The potential aura on Despair's head actually increased again. Although it was only a trace, his subtle sense of this aspect was very accurate. In addition, he had always held it in his hand, so he immediately felt the strangeness of the semi-artifact. Could it be that the soul breath of these undead creatures has been absorbed and strengthened? Garen speculated in his mind. He tried a few more times, chasing after the phantom that had begun to flee, and continued to hit him. After hitting a phantom 5 times in a row, the guy finally exploded and turned into a puff of black smoke that slowly dispersed, completely dead. Garen clearly felt that the potential aura of the Despair Head had been strengthened again, and he was overjoyed. If this method was feasible, he could hunt souls through the Despair Head. There was no need to follow the rules of bloody battles. Only the winning side would receive the souls distributed according to their military merits. He himself can freely hunt souls and turn them into potential breaths. Bang! Another phantom was smashed to pieces by Garen, and the explosion dispersed. Garen suddenly felt that the power that had been sucked away before returned. The potential aura on the skull of despair has increased a bit. Compared to when he took it out before, there should be an improvement of 5 or 6 points. This is not a small thing anymore. 2 phantoms were smashed by him, and the rest fled away. This harvest has already made Garen very satisfied. Equivalent to more than half a month's natural income, haha, Garen turned back to the cave with satisfaction. He found that the sharp protrusions on his back were getting longer and longer, and his growth rate was obviously beginning to accelerate. I believe it won't be long before he can evolve into the next form and continue to increase his attributes. It is said that the evolved form can randomly obtain an innate ability from the ocean of source power. Some are elemental abilities, and some are supernatural abilities. Although not all of them are good, there are also bad ones, but even if they are bad, they can be used well. A big advantage. Garen is looking forward to the talents that his evolved form can gain. When an orthodox white dragon reaches adulthood, he will naturally acquire the innate spells Ice Mirror and Frost Breathing, Large Area. But he is different. He has already reached a level that no white dragon in history has reached in his early childhood. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1311. Time passes day by day. Garen lurked in the cave, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. He himself did not expect that the potential aura of the despair head would take longer to absorb than he expected, but it was exactly as he expected, and all the potential aura of more than 2,000 points was absorbed by him. This is a big number. And his own evolution has reached a critical moment. The aura fluctuations on his body became extremely unstable. In the cave, he curled up, his entire dragon body wrapped in thick ice armor, like a perfect snow-white ice sculpture, motionless. Call. After a long time, A stream of white mist slowly erupted from his nostrils. Bang! 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 The sound of heavy footsteps gradually came from a distance. The inner wall of the cave began to tremble slightly, and fine powdery soil fell from the cave wall. The footsteps slowly walked outside the cave and then stopped. Outsiders, a heavy abyssal language came from outside. Aren't you going to come out and meet? Garen slowly opened his eyes. At this time, his eyes were covered with a gray-black film, as if there was a layer of something on the surface of his eyeballs. During the critical period of evolution, an unknown powerful being visited. The other party obviously chose a time when his state was unstable. Clearly with bad intentions. Who? He asked calmly. I was just randomly teleported here. Sorry if any offense was caused. I will leave here soon. There was silence outside the cave for a while, as if he was weighing whether to take action. Garen is also waiting for the other party's decision. Whether he is a friend or an enemy depends on the other party's thoughts. His attitude was clearly shown. After a while, the sound came from outside again. I am Kratos, the ruler of this territory, an unknown dragon species. You'd better leave my territory immediately. I'm sorry, I'm in a critical period now, Garen replied lightly. That can only be a pity. It suddenly became quiet outside the cave. Boom. There was a loud noise, and a huge dragon head burning with flames came in and bit into Garen's body in the cave. The size of this dragon head is almost the same as the fully enlarged version of Galleon. It is extremely ferocious. Large groups of flames pour into the cave, melting the covering frost, and evaporating large amounts of water, mist and white gas. Garen's body turned sideways and he whipped his tail hard. The tail and the nose of the dragon's head just collide. Bang! After the muffled sound, nothing happened to Longtu and Garen. They were just pushed backwards by the reaction force and continued to rush toward each other. Level 9, Garen was shocked. How could he encounter such a powerful opponent anywhere? The second time he collided with the giant beast, he took the opportunity to arch upward. His whole body arched out of the cave, broke through the ground, and flew into the air. The sky at this time was blood red, a black chain seemed to be tied around the sun, and the earth was grey and black. Garen flew up and saw the entire behemoth clearly. This is a huge monster whose upper body is a dragon and its lower body is a spider. The back of the giant beast is still burning with thick red flames, which are as gorgeous as its mane. Seeing him flying up, the giant beast raised its head and a ball of orange light lit up in its mouth. Laugh! A sharp red light shot straight towards Galleon. With a pop, the red beam hit his scales, leaving only a faint white spot. Level 9 spell immunity is no joke. Garen didn't care, and his body expanded back to its full size. It grew several times in size, then flew high into the sky and pounced down. Whoosh, his violent dive brought out a harsh whistling sound. Thick white air waves appeared at the tail. On the ground below, the earth arched up several tall rock giants, and following the will of the giant beast, they rushed towards Garen to grapple. The giant beast itself moved rapidly with 8 legs, shooting out a large number of flaming fire whips from its back, and dozens of red whips were overwhelmingly tied towards Garen. Garen dodged left and right, and actually passed through the gap, slamming into the giant beast. A layer of colorful light suddenly exploded from in front of the giant beast, dazzling Galleon's sight. This was a high-level colorful jet. In addition to blinding, it also had a stun effect, but the stun effect was a spell effect and Galleon was automatically immune to it. He rushed over without any hesitation. Boom! In the colorful light, he seemed to hit the giant beast's head. The two behemoths rolled on the ground and flew far away, leaving a deep scratch on the ground. Garen's power was actually much greater than that of this giant beast. He had not released it in the cave before, but this time they collided completely outside, and the gap between the two was clearly seen. The behemoth is obviously a legal monster, and it seems that it is not very adaptable to a purely physical monster like Garen. Stop! Stop! He shouted loudly. We don't need to engage in meaningless fighting. Garen also stopped at the right time, and finally whipped the giant beast's waist hard with his tail, knocking it over and rolling on the ground several times, causing a huge rumble and dust. What do you want to say again? He looked at the other party with interest. You are so powerful, you will definitely achieve great results in the bloody battle. As long as I build you a jagged shield, you will definitely be a meat-grinding machine on the battlefield, the monster Kratos explained loudly. I am an alchemist and master weapon forger, I can help you forge this. How about you do me a favor? This giant beast has a broken spider leg at this moment, and has injuries here and there on its body. It looks a little embarrassed, but it seems to have its own recovery spell and is healing the injuries quickly. Help me forge weapons and shields. Garen had already had this idea in his mind. Unexpectedly, he encountered a monster here that could forge weapons and equipment. He looked at the fierce flames on the opponent's back and couldn't help but feel a little worried. Believe it or not, Kratos seemed to sense that Garen was a little suspicious. Kratos said quickly. I have a good relationship with the deputy commander of the Fortress of 10,000 Cries. I have always been their chief blacksmith. You may not believe me in terms of combat, but I am an absolute expert in making equipment. I can also introduce you to the Fortress of 10,000 Cries to join the bloody battle. Fortress of 10,000 Cries. Yes, there is a big fortress nearby. Don't worry about this. The commander of the Legion is the 13th level demon Ilis Nada. There will be a big battle here in a while. If you don't believe me, you can go around and take a look. Let's see what other creatures say, Kratos said loudly. Garen felt his back getting more and more itchy and uncomfortable, and his mood was also affected and he became very uncomfortable. I'll go take a look around. After saying that, without waiting for the giant beast to answer, he flapped his wings and flew away into the distance. In the past few days since he came to the abyss, he has been huddled in the cave and has not really visited the landscape here. Flying at high speed, Garen quickly left the cave area where he was originally located and entered a dark green forest and swamp. Above the swamp, you can vaguely see some old women with long green hair and robes floating around. These are hags who lure travelers, mercenaries, and even demons everywhere. Of course, if you are strong enough, they are also the most cunning businessmen. Specializes in selling information and souls. With the appearance of the hag, some little demons dragging black scorpion tails could be faintly seen in the surrounding area, and there were more signs of creatures. Garen continued to fly towards the depths of the swamp forest, and slowly he could see some huge green mud-type monsters. This kind of liquid monster was green and viscous. It lurked in the swamp and would suddenly emerge to attack travelers. Pull it tightly and drag it into the stomach for digestion. But here, the mud monsters seemed to have no intention of hiding at all. The green on their bodies flashed with network-like blood vessels. These blood vessels showed a slight white light, which was very conspicuous. He saw a huge mud monster up to 100 meters wide talking to several centaur warriors. This is the territory of Traitor Gothica. Foreign dragons are not allowed to fly here. Suddenly a voice came from below, and Garen suddenly felt a huge force pressing him down towards the swamp below. He did not resist, but fell down obediently, standing on a relatively stable swamp, with frost directly condensing under his feet to form a flat ground on which he could stand. Baelong? Are you from Baelong Mountain? Probably not. He doesn't have the badge of Baelong Mountain on him. This is a precious mobile treasure house. If you can kill a giant dragon, the voice deepened. Garen's menacing eyes scanned the surrounding area. The voice sounded again. It is forbidden to use force or fight here. Only fair transactions are allowed. Traitor, Garen chuckled a few times. There were sparsely standing around him who were trading with hags, including humans, half-orcs, and a rare mud and stone elemental. There are so many traders in such a small area, so it is conceivable that this territory seems to be very famous here. Galen walked with heavy steps in the swamp. Feeling a little conspicuous, he quickly shrank his body into the form of a swimming dragon and flew slowly. This move seemed to be very effective, and soon a hag floated in front of him clutching a cane. "Outsiders, how can I serve you?" Her sharp voice was so thrilling that it could make a child cry without any processing. "I want to buy enough souls, do you have them?" Garen grinned with a rather gentle smile. "Soul?" The ghost woman laughed sharply. "It depends on what level of soul you need. If it is a low-level soul, I can get you tens of thousands, but for high-level souls above level 5, I can only get them. Just some." "Is it really possible to buy it?" Garen was slightly startled. "What if I want the soul of a 10th level expert?" The hag's sharp laughter suddenly stopped. Unless you can give a reasonable price that is enough to tempt the Legion commander, it is impossible. You also know that we hags are actually working for the fortress master." Garen thought for a while and reported some rare materials that his mage tower needed. Unexpectedly, 4 of them were actually available here. "What is used as the currency of exchange here?" "Currency? No, there is no such thing here. We only occasionally use soul cocoons as a measure of value," the ghost woman explained. "How about it? I have the best slave souls here who can build a territory for you, architects, craftsmen, alchemists, as well as beautiful and lovely elf slaves, and even a little princess with the blood of the elf king, Jajaja." Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1312. "No need for now," Garen refused. Shaking away the chattering hag, Garen flew towards the depths of the swamp. Soon, the swamp on the ground gradually turned red, and a tall black palace appeared in the depths. Patrolling around the palace wall was a black war puppet more than 10 meters tall. This humanoid puppet with horns has extremely strong concussive power. Sturdy and durable, it is one of the best alchemical items to use as a guard. It only takes an ordinary soul to power it for several years, making it very cost-effective. Garen was blocked by the war puppet and was not allowed to move forward. The level of the owner here was unknown, and any monster could appear in the abyss. No creature dared to conflict with an unknown enemy for no reason. So Garen did not force forward, but retreated. Following the other side, he soon left the green swamp. But soon he felt that someone was watching him. After leaving the swamp, there were a few small figures vaguely following behind. Garen is still in the shape of a young dragon. With such a body shape, he looks very petite and weak, only at level 4. It's no wonder that some blind people are staring at him. He found a hill and flew over, then landed in the shadow of the hill's back, turned around and waited for the pursuer behind him. Rustle. Amidst the subtle noise, 3 translucent and somewhat distorted figures appeared on the top of the hill, looking down. "Actually discovered?" one of them asked in surprise. Now that they were discovered, they no longer hid, and the translucent spell on their bodies immediately dissipated. 3 figures in gray-silver armor were revealed. These were clearly 3 knights. There was a light red light flashing under their bodies. These light red lights were constantly centered on them and radiated outward in circles, representing their blasphemous status as knights. Blasphemy knights are knights who have been judged as blasphemers by the Church of Gods for various reasons. Many of them enter the abyss through special channels, so as to avoid their lives and souls being captured by the gods and tortured forever. After all, the gods punish blasphemers very severely. Although the abyss is cruel, there is still a chance of survival. These 3 blasphemous knights were 2 women and 1 man. They were all young, and their armors seemed to be of the same style. "I want the skin and eyes of this young dragon, and you will divide the rest," one of the female knights said calmly. "Its eyes look weird at first glance. It might be some kind of treasure. Isn't it good to classify it so early?" another female knight said dissatisfied. I think it's not too late to deal with the opponent first before talking about this. The only male knight seemed to have noticed something was wrong with Garen. His eyes were fixed on Garen. Only the three of you are following. Garen glanced behind him dissatisfiedly, and after careful sensing, it was indeed these three fools who followed. It seems that most of the traders are very smart. He looked at the three knights carefully and saw that the wave aura was at level 4. How dare 3 level 4 knights hunt a level 4 baby dragon from the abyss? Maybe they have special hiding methods, but don't they know that the things that should not be messed with in the abyss are those seemingly weak beings? In a place like the abyss, who is not afraid that his strength is not fully revealed? Only by showing strength can you avoid fraud and oppression. Only those powerful beings who deliberately want to lure hunters to resist hunting will deliberately show weakness to the real weak ones and native creatures. There may be some among demons, but almost none of the outsiders are too weak. Superior. The male knight took the lead in pulling out the big sword, and the blade was dyed with a light red aura. The level 4 fluctuation suddenly jumped to level 5. Looking at the way her body was swollen and the muscles were knotted, it was obvious that she had used some kind of temporary method to enhance her strength. Ah! He rushed towards Garen fiercely and struck out with his sword. Boom! The level 5 sword struck Garen hard on the head. Garen stood still, not even a white mark left on his scales. Instead, a big crack appeared in the giant's sword. The male knight's face instantly turned pale. Garen originally thought he would drop his sword and turn around and run away, but instead he looked resolute and roared. Rena, Aaron. Run! He did not retreat but advanced, and continued to charge towards Garen without hesitation. The two female knights behind immediately realized what had happened. One ran away, while the other was stunned for a moment. She also drew her sword and rushed towards Garen, obviously wanting to save her companion. Interesting. Garen stretched out his claws to gently block the slash of the sword, and with a slight exertion, the male knight was suddenly shaken by a violent shock and fell to the side. I'll fight with you. The female knight who rushed up had her eyes red, thinking that her companion was dead. She burst out a red light with all her strength and rushed towards Garen. She actually rushed to the 6th level wave. Sure enough, those who can be teleported from other planes are not weak. Garen sighed in his heart. He can easily meet masters of level 5 and level 6. This may not be a big deal to the dragon clan, but among humans, it takes thousands of people to achieve this level of master. He stretched out his claws and gently blocked the big sword slashed by the female knight. Garen suddenly felt something was wrong. The aura of the female knight's big sword turned into countless tiny red vines and tightly entangled his claws. Although the power of entanglement is negligible to him, for an average master of level 5 or 6, this entanglement is enough to make him pause for a moment, reflecting the slowness of one beat. This slowness is likely to be the difference between life and death. Being kind and righteous, I originally planned to eat you, but now it seems that you may be of some use. Garen shook his hand and passed it out, killing the female knight and paralyzing her on the ground. The skills passed down from the secret martial arts are invincible against the melee physics warriors here. This extremely sophisticated skill can almost be called a divine skill in the eyes of people here. Therefore, although Garen's other secret martial arts effects cannot be used, this skill combined with his own strong qualities still puts him at the top of the physical warriors. Kill me, the female knight was determined. Who asked you to come here, Irene? The male knight said angrily. Rena knows how to run away. Only by running away can you have a chance to come back and save me. Why don't you run? We will die together, the female knight replied flatly. The male knight was so angry that he could not speak. Garen flapped his wings and flew directly towards the female knight who escaped earlier. Within a moment, he saw the guy's fleeing figure. She covered her entire body with the stinking swamp mud, and it was almost impossible to distinguish the style of the armor on her body. Her movements were only slightly hurried, and it was difficult to find her among the sparse humanoid creatures around her. But Garen never looks at people by their appearance, but by sensing their soul. Spotting this guy, he swooped down and the shock was transmitted, instantly eliminating all resistance from this guy and carrying him back easily. He has a strength of up to 80 points. As long as the opponent's physique is not tough enough and cannot reach more than 50 points, then his vibration technique can be said to be invincible and he will fall down if he touches it. Flying back to the place, what surprised Garen was that there were actually two hags secretly collecting the souls of the two prisoners who fell limply on the ground. The souls of the two blasphemous knights were almost pulled out of their bodies and were already halfway out. "Dare you touch my trophies? I'm really tired of living," Garen felt unhappy. Dropping the female knight in her claws, she pounced directly on the hag. "Block it," a hag screamed. Suddenly, a black beetle about 7 or 8 meters tall rose up from the ground, and its sharp pliers cut towards Galen. Garen ripped his claws from left to right, and the huge force was directly transmitted to the beetle's body along with the vibration. This guy's physique obviously didn't reach 50 points, and he went limp. He was hit directly on the head by Garen's claw, and all the red and green brains were smashed out, and he lay motionless on the ground. The two hags did not expect that the battle would end so quickly. They were so frightened that they lost their souls and ran away. But with a speed of 80 galleons, he caught up almost instantly. With one claw, he popped it like a balloon. The two hags screamed in deflation and turned into two green human skins falling on the ground. On the ground, he was put away by Galen and turned back. The green poisonous smoke that floated out from the frustration tried to stick to Garen, but it was completely ineffective. It only lasted for 2 seconds before being immune to Garen's strong physique. The three blasphemy knights were thrown together by Garen. He found a random vine on the ground to tie the three of them together, and grabbed them with one claw. Garen planned to find some subordinates to help him collect information. It was too passive to act alone. Before the ultimate transformation technique, moving in the body of a dragon was too eye-catching. You might as well find someone to represent you. Catching the three blasphemy knights, Garen flew all the way and asked the flame beast if what it said was true. It was indeed not lying. Garen quickly returned to the original cave location. If everything the giant beast said was true, then the task of forging weapons and equipment really had to fall on him. Another 2,000 points of potential value should also be added to the Void original code. As he was flying all the way, he started to add potential points. Last time, he added more than 140 points, which raised it to 14%. This time, he added 500 points in one go, and saw that the Void original code had risen sharply. It rushed directly from 14% to 64%. It was obvious that he felt changes in his body, some subtle but thorough changes, but he didn't have a chance to check it yet. First throwing the three knights into his cave, Garen went to find the flame beast whose aura was still not far away. Casts a small barrier negative energy spell. Anyway, the three guys were made weak by him, their muscles and bones were injured by the shock, and they were unable to move, so there was no need to worry about them running out. How about it? The giant beast lay in the ruins of one of its buildings and looked up at the flying Garen. "Have you decided to let me help you build weapons and equipment? What are your conditions?" Garen didn't think there was such a thing as a free lunch. "I want you to provide me with high-quality souls. Don't be too busy to refuse. I sense that you have a special soul artifact in your hand. I recently developed a magic circle that can try to condense high-quality souls, but what is missing is a soul artifact. If the two of us cooperate, we may be able to gain great benefits." The giant beast said sincerely that in fact, he originally planned to rob it by force, but unfortunately he could not defeat the opponent. High-quality soul. Garen was moved. The quality of the soul is too low, and he has almost no effect of absorbing it as a potential point. Just like now, if he absorbs an ordinary person's soul as a potential point, it will probably have no effect at all. No matter how much he absorbs, it will be in vain. Only when it reaches a certain concentration can it be produced. Only a soul of level 3 or above after qualitative transformation can allow him to absorb some potential points. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1313. If there are high-quality souls, maybe he can gather a large number of low-level souls to get potential points. The greatest benefits will be obtained on such a battlefield. As soon as he started thinking, Garen had a detailed conversation with the behemoth Kratos about the details and principles of the formation. Both of them were guys without principles of good and evil. Finally, with the behemoth not talking about it, Garen he still figured out the origin of his formation, which was to absorb the souls and petitioners who died in the bloody battle. Although there were not many, he did not dare to snatch souls from the abyss. But just 1% of 1% is enough for two guys to eat until they are full. After some discussion, Garen naturally did not dare to trust the other party casually, but Kratos vowed to find a Styx oath to sign the contract, and Garen was waiting for his Styx oath. He himself went back to the cave to stay there while interrogating the three newly acquired prisoners. Watching Garen leave, Kratos carefully arranged a circle of flame isolation barrier. Then countless beetles emerged from the ground behind him, forming the shape of a graceful female body. "How's it going? How about Mafe and Bakalo whom you contacted?" Kratos changed his previous cautious attitude and looked gloomy. "They have been notified. Bakalo is very impatient. He was testing a large blood array and was interrupted by me." "You need to pay the price," the beetle woman replied in a low voice. Kratos's face twitched, showing a faint expression of pain. "Bakalo is willing to come." "Yes." He was very angry and said that if you can't give him a satisfactory answer, even the fortress of 10,000 cries can't stop him from eating you. The beetle woman shuddered. "I lost a third of my body just to see him. That's a 13th level existence. He also has a share in the soul magic circle this time. Anyway, as long as we get the soul artifact, our success rate will greatly increase." Kratos's eyes darkened. "I don't believe it. A mere little kid Balong can still withstand the encirclement and suppression by the three of us." "What if he really can withstand it?" the beetle woman asked worriedly. "Then what does it matter if you share his share? Only I can activate the soul array. No matter what happens, nothing will happen to me, so there is nothing to be afraid of," Kratos said sinisterly. "I am the only one, and there is Mafe, who is level 11, and Bakalo, who is level 13, unless it is Lord 10,000 cries." He. Garen returned to the cave. The three blasphemous knights were still unable to move in the cave, but they had regained consciousness. Only the eyes and face can move, but the rest cannot. Seeing Garen walking into the cave, the three of them turned pale with fear. What his eyes were fixed on was Garen's big mouth. Apparently thinking Garen might want to eat them. Garen's pure white body passed through the black negative energy barrier. The cave was empty, with nothing. All his food and drink were contained in the space ring given to him by the Winged King. Walking step by step to a female knight, Garen grinned, revealing his white teeth. "Laugh." He bit the female knight on the head. "Ah!" Garen let go of his mouth amid the sharp screams. Looking at the female knight who fainted, he shook his head speechlessly. "What are you afraid of? Isn't it just to scare you?" He was just too bored to make fun like this. "Irene has always been timid," the male knight gasped. "If I want to kill you, kill me first." Quite tough. Garen turned his gaze to look at this guy. He walked over and kicked this guy away. Now is not the time to control a few guys. After his Void Codex completely simulates his original abilities, if he can condense the mutated soul seeds created in the vampire world, or it would be perfect if it was the twisted seed of the cold hell peacock mother. Walking to the center of the cave, Garen curled up his body. He had just improved the Void Codex to 64%, and he could already feel many changes in his body. The Void Codex was originally the key to the true spirit promotion that gathered all traces of his power. 64%, this value has enabled several secret martial arts that have been practiced in succession. Among them, the more critical Northern Halbi or Hanyan Zhen Shui Xiegong has been perfectly activated. Then there was the 7-star secret Ake appointment that he had practiced. These two sets of terrifying magic skills were finally fully completed and activated. This instantly made up for more than half of Garen's entire individual force system, and also made a great addition to his supernatural power. At least he no longer had to go to such trouble when he encountered a phantom again, using a semi-artifact to slowly grind him to death. Looking at the more than 1,600 potential points left, I removed 500 points, and that's all that's left. Try again and see if you can increase the remaining percentage. Garen had a vague feeling that the further the Void Codex went, the more potential points it needed. He had already had a vague feeling when he added up to 500 points before. The percentage increase was very fast at first, but became more and more difficult later on. Try again. He continued to focus his gaze on the Void original code. The potential points have dropped significantly again, and the improvement of the Void Codex has once again increased. Garen didn't notice at all, but 7 blood-red black stars began to vaguely flash on the wings behind him. The black stars were completely black, with only a faint red light emitting from the surroundings. A strange and lifeless aura slowly filled the air and spread around the cave. 64% then, it got stuck. After reaching 70%, the Void original code is directly stuck, but the potential point is still falling crazily. It cost more than 60 potential points to increase galleons by 6%, but after a sudden pause, the potential value was still declining, but the Void original code could no longer be missing. The potential points of more than 1,600 quickly dropped to 1,400. Then the Void original code no longer absorbed the potential points, and the potential points stopped decreasing. Garen clearly felt a sense of fullness in his body, like a balloon, with a large amount of gas filling his body. Can't I improve? He moved his body. It should be that my current physical fitness limits my improvement. The several powers behind the Void original code are too powerful, and it is completely obvious that this body cannot bear all the load. After all, his Cold Hell Peacock Mother's secret martial arts in the later period was already an extremely powerful, terrifying magic skill. The Void original code simulates the complete restoration of all original cultivation levels. In other words, all the secret martial arts and magic skills he has practiced before will be reappeared and gathered in this body. Opening his eyes, Garen clearly felt that his right foot was swollen. He looked down and saw that his right hind limb had grown into a strange dark blue sphere like a hockey puck. With a slight movement in his heart, the ice blue sphere suddenly left his body, and his right hind limb was also gone. As soon as the blue sphere hit the ground, it automatically split apart, and a tall, faceless man holding a halberd emerged from the middle. The man's body was extremely muscular, more than 2 meters tall, with fair skin and long dark blue hair. His whole body was filled with a silent evil aura. Not only did he have a halberd in his hand, but there were also countless translucent halberds slowly condensed by ice behind him. "Are you my right foot?" Garen's heart suddenly moved slightly and he opened his mouth to ask. At this time, the other 3 knights in the cave were stunned. The fierce and evil cold air penetrated into their bodies silently. They did not realize that their bodies had turned a faint and strange blue color, and their body temperatures began to drop unconsciously. The man with long blue hair nodded slightly. His body is naturally covered with a layer of gorgeous and exquisite light blue ice armor. "Hail, my lord." He seemed to have his own intelligence, but his consciousness was connected to Garen's, as if Garen was talking to another version of himself. Or maybe it's like talking to yourself in front of the mirror. At the same time, Garen felt that his wings were showing signs of detachment. He followed the slight movement in his heart and allowed his wings to detach naturally. When the wings fell on the ground, they naturally transformed into a tall, strong man with a black body. His hands were spread out, like two huge wings. 7 black and red holes slowly appeared on his back. The man also has no face. His short black hair and abnormally strong muscles give him an extremely terrifying and domineering feeling. This is the overlord of the vampire world, Garen at the peak of world martial arts. At that time, he relied on the 7-star secret point to dominate the entire world, without any rival. If Nadia hadn't appeared in the end, he might have been able to rule the martial arts in that world for hundreds of years. You are my wings. Garen looked at the other person calmly. Of course, the man replied in the same low tone. Garen looked at the two naturally separated sub-bodies of his own. This was obviously the function of the Void original code. It turned out that they were not all unified into one individual, but were combined with different individuals as a match. When these individuals are all gathered together, that's when the most powerful entity appears. The last one, Garen felt his long tail disappearing, and what reappeared was an elegant man dressed in black and holding a violin. The most special thing about him is his eyes. There is no face on his face, only 2 eyes. The left eye is red and the right eye is golden. In my heart, everything is useless, the man said calmly. My lord, it is a pleasure to meet you. Garen noticed that his violin had a golden lotus tattooed on it. This is the manifestation of the Holy Phoenix scripture, or the Holy Phoenix magic code. The way of domination. Garen looked at this sub-body, feeling quite touched in his heart. 70% of the Void Codex revealed these 3 images of his past. What was missing was the King of Crystals in the former Mecha world, the Cold Hell Peacock Mother. For these 3 sub-bodies, Garen named them Evil Soldier, Grimoire, and 7 Lives respectively. Looking at his incomplete dragon body, Garen thought, and the 3 individuals returned to his body again, turning into his right foot, wings, and tail. 2 of the 3 knights were already unconscious when 7 Lives appeared. When 7 Lives first appeared, they had been contaminated by the evil aura of the evil soldiers, causing their bodies to freeze and their entire consciousness and even their souls to temporarily go into shock. Seeing that his body was complete, Garen breathed a sigh of relief. The right foot, wings, and tail each have power that is completely different from the bodies. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1314. Among them, the tail is the most powerful. The power of the Holy Phoenix Grimoire is extremely overbearing. When the long tail sways gently, Garen can feel the terrifying intention in it to destroy all blocking forces. This thought, or will, causes the magic book power flowing in the long tail to rotate according to some mysterious trajectory. Then generate more powerful force. As if, still practicing on his own, Garen suddenly understood the principle, and a sense of absurdity suddenly arose in his heart. A part of his body is actually still cultivating powerful power according to his own independent will. He tried to mobilize this kind of power, and he was able to use this power completely regardless of each other. So, together with the tail, the other 2 places, and myself, isn't it equivalent to 4 individuals practicing and strengthening one body at the same time? He was surprised and happy. At this time, he no longer knew where his strength was. Such variables are too great, and it is still unknown how powerful the Void original code can be at this stage. What I need now is to test my true strength. Garen glanced at the 3 knights on the ground, stood up, and walked out of the cave. On the plain far away from Garen cave, a huge black hound slowly walked towards the ruins of the flame beast. This huge hound is all black. From a distance, it may just be an ordinary hound, but if you look closely, you will find that its body is actually composed of countless corpses and human bones. This is a huge corpse hound. He has a huge body more than 10 meters tall and more than 20 meters long. His eyes are 2 black holes. Blood-red mucus is dripping from the edge of his big mouth from time to time. His sharp teeth are slightly exposed from the mouth. From a distance, all the surrounding creatures can feel the death breath it emits, and they will run away from it. The corpse hound is generally one of the favorite undead guards of the necromancers and archliches, but this corpse hound has obviously completely escaped control. There is a row of clear black bone spurs on its back, which is a sign that it has no controller. Mafe, oh. My dear Mafe, you are finally here. The flame giant Kratos quickly rushed out of his ruins, and when he saw the corpse hound from a distance, he rushed over. His 8 legs move very smoothly like a spider, but the dragon head matching the upper body looks a bit weird. Hiss. I happen to have no food, so you promised to send me 1,000 high-quality corpses. How generous, Kratos. Hiss, the corpse hound exhaled loudly. Kratos forced a smile and resisted the stench of the corpse hound. Let's go to my territory first. My request must be clear, right? Of course. Hiss, the corpse hound grinned. Bakalo is already nearby, and his teleportation technique has always been the best. Bakalo. It's so fast. The flame beast's face froze obviously, and his eyes were slightly frightened. If you can't satisfy him, you'll be in trouble this time, Mafe chuckled. There was a muffled roar, and suddenly the 2 behemoths looked up to the sky in the distance. The horsehair hound's face showed obvious ridicule and expectation, while Kratos was extremely serious and cautious. Soon a huge blood-red cloud floated in the distant sky. The cloud squirmed around its edges like a living thing. Its core continued to twist and gather, and a huge human face emerged. It was the face of a man with a beard and hair. It was almost the same as the formation spirit Garen had seen in Snow City, but that time it was a thunder cloud, and this time it was a blood cloud, and this time it was almost twice the size and volume. The blood cloud covered almost the entire plain. The sun in the sky was also blocked, and the day seemed to suddenly turn gray and red. Kratos, if you dare to deceive me, I will really swallow you this time, the huge blood cloud face roared and made a terrifying noise. It was an abyssal language mixed with the sounds of violent wind, thunder, and the screams of countless people. Bakalo, when did I never fulfill my promise to you? Kratos forced out a slightly flattering smile. Even if you can't trust me, you still can't trust the fortress of 10,000 cries behind me. I am the chief blacksmith of the fortress. Bakalo is a cloud with no fixed form. This is his characteristic as a climatic life. He was born at the junction between the abyss Styx and the heaven. The void universe there is filled with a large amount of evil abyss power and pure aura. The interweaving gradually formed a large number of clouds with mixed impurities, and one of them gave birth to the weird and special life of Bakalo. He has 2 extreme personalities. Every abyssal month, he will immediately change into a personality. This personality is a random personality generated in different proportions by mixing the pure and pious heavenly aura and the evil and selfish abyssal power. Even he himself can't. I can't be sure what my next Abyss Moon's character will be. Once when he met his old friend Kratos, he just transformed into an indifferent and desperate character who was indifferent to everything. The extreme form of this character is self-destruction. He just planned to devour all life in sight and then self-destruct. As a result, Kratos was almost eaten alive. If the legion commander of the fortress of 10,000 cries, that is, the Lord, had not stepped in to save him, he would have turned into fertilizer and nutrients for Bakalo. Dear Bakalo, I hope you will be in a good mood during this meeting, Kratos said cautiously. Mafe is not very afraid of Bakalo. It has escaped from this guy before, and what he is best at is escaping, and his confidence in this aspect is extremely strong. I'm in a bad mood, really. Your messenger interrupted an important experiment of mine at the most critical moment. If you can't pay a price that satisfies me, then I will consider killing you now. Bajaloya seemed to be in some kind of angry mood at this time. He kept roaring and roaring, the storm roared, the airflow accelerated rapidly, and the surrounding temperature continued to increase. The temperature of the Earth plane suddenly increased by more than 10 degrees, and it continued to heat up. Please rest assured, this time I am asking you to take action for a soul semi-artifact. Kratos emphasized the word soul. Soul artifact, sure enough, Bakalo calmed down a little. There is also a heterogeneous white dragon with a very powerful talent. His body is very powerful, and the energy contained in his flesh and blood can definitely satisfy you, Kratos said with a sinister smile. He relaxed a little now, and it seemed that Kilo seems to be in the midst of a traceable personality, which is the best time to deal with him. Where is the thing? Take me there immediately. Bakalo became impatient. Don't be impatient, I'll take you to there right away, Kratos said softly, proudly. Abnormal fluctuations. Garen felt a little irritated. Is there something wrong with Kratos? The abyss is full of fraud and scams, and he has to worry about Kratos' ulterior motives. That guy seemed to be a local snake, so it was only natural that he would know some helpers. It seems that we should be more careful. Garen thought for a moment and felt that the sudden fluctuation in the distance was a bit strange. To be cautious, he grabbed 3 knights and ran out of the cave. I don't know when a large red cloud appeared in the distance in the sky, slowly moving towards the side. It seems that the abnormal fluctuation is caused by this red cloud. Maybe it is related to the weird and messy weather in the abyss. Garen frowned. He thought for a moment, didn't care, returned to the cave, and quickly disappeared into the cave. The red clouds in the distance moved towards the side quickly after he returned to the cave. Under the red cloud, Kratos and the corpse hound Mafe ran quickly, chasing the pace of the red cloud. Kratos kept taking out pieces of metal oval rune paper in his hand. The yellow leather roll kept burning and turned into black ashes and disappeared in the wind. Countless black ashes continued to scatter, naturally blown by the strong wind rolled up by the red clouds. Dong Dong fell to the large open space around Galen Cave. Rows of black and gray automatically arranged into complicated and detailed strange symbols and words. It was a huge magic circle composed of abyssal language and power runes. The entire array is centered on Galen Cave and is several kilometers in diameter. It is completed as the last bit of black ash falls. Buzz. The entire formation suddenly buzzed and vibrated, and countless black threads floated up from the ashes of the formation. They intertwined into a network and spread toward the sky, growing longer and higher, like countless black vines. Everything is devoured. A human face emerged from the red cloud, staring greedily at the cave below where Garen was. His entire huge body of clouds and mist pressed downwards. Boom! The cave collapsed directly. There was nothing inside. Kratos' face froze, and Mafe showed a gloating look in his eyes. Bakalo was stunned for a moment, and then looked at Kratos with a gaze so cold that it could freeze everything. Is this the alien white dragon and soul artifact you are talking about? If you want to die, just say so. I am willing to fulfill your wish at any time. No, no, no. Bakalo, listen to me, this is definitely not the case. Kratos shook his head hurriedly, with a trace of fear in his eyes. The white dragon has been living here before. This is absolutely true, I dare to swear on my soul and the sticks. You still want to lie to me? Bakalo was completely angry. He swooped down, and the huge red cloud overwhelmingly enveloped Kratos. The huge soul suppression naturally has the effect of the amnesty spell. And it is also the power of the amnesty spell that reaches the peak of the 9th level. This power is endless, unlike ordinary creatures that are only released once. Bakalo releases this terrifying oppression almost endlessly, allowing Kratos to unable to move. No. Master Bakalo. Listen to me. The situation is not what you imagined, Kratos shouted, watching the red cloud oppression almost reaching his head. He finally felt the real shadow of death. It's not that he doesn't want to resist, he has resisted before, but it has no effect at all and will only anger the other party more. The gap between level 13 and level 9 is almost the same as the gap between level 5 and level 9.